Hello and welcome to a new episode of the BIMvoice. Today, our guest is Antonio González Viegas, who is an architect and BIM developer. Hello, Antonio. How are you doing?
Hello. Good. How about you?
I'm fine, thank you. It's so nice to have you here. Introduce yourself, please.
Yeah. Hello. I'm Antonio. I am an architect, graduated in Sevilla, which is a city in the South Spain, the capital of Andalusia, actually. And then I started working in some studios, but I quickly came into SIPE, which is a software company for BIM software. And then, there I learned how to code because, having breakfast every day with people that code and you don't know how to code. And it's like, oh, I need to learn this at least to follow the conversations in the morning. And yeah, I love this. And now I'm doing this little project in my free time.
I'm sorry, I forgot to mention this when I introduced you, that you are actually the main developer of IFC.js, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it was right until like 1 month ago, because 1 month ago, there was another person with a really, really similar project, but with a different approach, which is Tom Van Diggelen. And this person came to me and told me basically like, hey, we are doing the same thing. Why don't we join forces? And in the end, I will explain that later if you want. But in the end, we've like merged both projects, and now he's like more focused on the back end, so to call it, or the processing part, and I'm more focused on the front end or the 3D adaptation and so on. But yeah, in the end, we are now working in everything. But yeah, like we are now two main people working in this project.
Okay, so what is going to be the name in the future for this project?
Oh, well, and right now we have 3 separate repositories. IFC.js will remain, and the idea with that is that it will be both an open source IFC viewer and also a place in which people can go and see boilerplate code when they want to develop BIM applications, because yes, there are a lot of BIM applications, but in the end, almost all of them need the same basic functionalities, such as selecting objects, seeing properties, moving around, having menus, and so on.
Mhm.
So IFC.js will use 3.js, which is the library we're using to display 3D things in the browser. And anyone going there will be able to develop BIM applications just in a couple of minutes, because there they will have all the tools and all the code they need to do that. And then we have this other repository, which is Web IFC. And this contains all the complexity that we need to load IFC files. But this complexity is like hidden, so people don't need to see the scary things that go on under the hood.
Yeah, I understand. Well, let's dive deeper in then. Do you mind sharing the screen and
Yeah.
start
Let's.
talking more in depth about this?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see it. It's working.
Yeah, perfect. So, basically, this story started. I think it was in October, maybe. I was learning how to code in JavaScript because my background before that, I have been coding for less than 2 years, I think, and I started with C# in the context of the Revit API, and this is something I did for site. But then I really loved how to code, and I wanted to learn more about that. So I started with JavaScript because for me, web development was the perhaps most interesting topic. And I was looking for a project, like something to do in my free time, because just learning theory can be boring. And I found out this issue in 3.js. For those who don't know, 3.js is a library to see 3D in the web. This library allows you to like really easily create 3D models and display them in the web and create video games and do a lot of stuff. And it's open source. So you can see the code here. So I found that this library didn't have a module or a tool for loading IFC files. And I thought like, oh, it would be so good to have an IFC loader that can easily load IFCs, because I'm aware that there are a lot of developers who want to start developing BIM applications. One of the perhaps biggest obstacles is that reading and writing IFC files is something really difficult. But in the end of the day, we all want to do the same thing. It's like probably Revit reads IFC files in a really similar way as Archicad and in a really similar way to Allplan. So I thought, well, why don't I do this? Because I work with IFCs every day. I know more or less the structure. Why don't I do this as a project? Actually, in this pull request, there was people like asking, isn't there anything to do something like this in 3.js? And this was like 2 years ago. So yeah, at some point I just commented, hey, I'm starting with this and I perhaps want to start a project here. So yeah, and I just jumped into the pool because I had no idea what I needed to make this kind of project. Yeah. This was something really, I didn't know how much time would I have to do this, because again, this is something I do in my free time. But yeah, this was the 13th of October. And then, yeah, I started the project.
This is the best way to learn anyway. Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, exactly, because like, I think that this was a great way to generate pressure, to have people asking me, hey, because if you're doing a project and nobody knows it, it's like, yeah, I'm doing this, but yeah.
Doesn't matter.
If there's like a great amount of people asking you every day, hey, how is the project going? You are like, oh, I have to sit down this night to do some things, because otherwise, yeah. And yes, it was difficult. And I think that the main difficulty of this project, and actually one of the reasons why this project is becoming so popular now in the social networks, is, like I said, that if you try to develop an openBIM application, like starting from scratch, like, okay, I will take JavaScript and develop a tool that is able to see IFCs, or, I don't know, to calculate how much materials do you have in your IFC or something like that. You stumble across this documentation, which is very detailed, but at the same time, it's really hard, because this is like a dictionary. It has a lot of information. It has all the definitions, but it's like, okay, but it's like trying to learning a language with a dictionary. You can do that. Perhaps you can, take a Spanish dictionary and learn some words, but probably you won't be able to have a conversation. And yeah, there's more documentation than that, but the main problem was this. And the main idea with this project, which, by the way, this is the pull request. This is the mechanism that GitHub has for me to give my code to 3.js once we are finished. I think that one of the reasons why people is so excited about this, myself included, is that everyone will be able to use IFCs without having to struggle with this documentation. Because at the end of the day, yeah, we all want the same. We all want to see the model and take the information. Why don't we do this once, and then everyone else can, use this work to do whatever they want to do. So yeah, it was hard. You can go to my GitHub repo and see how it goes, because one good thing about GitHub is that it tracks all the steps in the project. And you can see that I started this, in the end of October, more or less. And then, this was actually, I bought the Switch, the Nintendo Switch, for myself. And this is why there's a hole in the contributions here. But yeah, I've been quite active. This is the only project I'm doing right now. And if you go to Twitter, you will see how it went. In the beginning, I only could display some walls, some furniture, and then it became better. I was able to actually display curtain walls, any kind of furniture. And the good thing is that because this is web development, this is something that works both in mobiles and in tablets, in computers. And this as I said, this gained a lot of visibility. And if I go up, actually, I later was able to retrieve the information of the IFC files. But in this point of the project, there was a major issue, and was that that JavaScript is a really easy language, and this was one of the reasons why I decided to do the whole project in JavaScript. And anyone that knows like the basics of coding is able to read and write JavaScript. It's a really easy language. But the downside is that it's not a compiled language. You know that in programming, there are two kinds of languages. One are the compiled languages, which means that once you're finished with the code, you compile it to something that the user can execute from the computer, like a .x or a .dll file. And this is very efficient, because then when you execute the software, this compiled code gets copied into the RAM memory, and it's sent to the CPU, and it's very efficient. But JavaScript is not a compiled language. And this means that if I click, I don't know, F12 in any web page, this is the Chrome developer tools, and you all have this in Google Chrome, okay? And if I click any element, you are able to see the code of that. I mean, the code is not compiled. And this means that what is happening here is that the compiled code of Google Chrome gets copied into the RAM memory, and then all the information that you get from the internet is interpreted in real time by Google Chrome, and when it's interpreted, it's sent to the CPU line by line. It's different. Instead of translating the whole code and then sending it to the CPU, it's line by line translating the code, and this is obviously much slower than something like C++ or C or any. This is the reason why there's this notion that web applications are not as performant or are less powerful than native applications. This is the main reason why this is like this. And yeah, this was very nice. We were able to have different aspects in the model. We were able to navigate all the properties of the model. All this was plain JavaScript, nothing more. But the downside of this was the loading time, because I was facing increasing loading times with bigger models. And this was something of my concern, because I was aware that a lot of people wanting to use this library really were dealing with, 1 gigabyte big model. And this could take 1 minute to open. And this was probably an obstacle, because if you take any IFC viewer, any native IFC viewer like BIM Vision, they are able to open files much faster. And at this point is when one day I had a notification in GitHub, and there was an issue. Issues are like a place where people can post comments with suggestions and start conversations. And Tom showed up and told me hey, I am doing more or less the same project, that instead of using JavaScript, I'm using WebAssembly, which is a really new technology, which allow to take compiled language and bring them to the browser. So this is much more efficient, because the browser doesn't need to interpret line by line in the code. It's like a package of super efficient code that can be sent directly to the CPU. Obviously, this is much more complex than that, but yeah, more or less it's like that. And he showed me what he had, and it was really promising. So yeah, we had this conversation, and in the end, we decided to join forces and work on this together. Well, yeah, this is if you look for WebAssembly or WASM in Google Images, you get this kind of images, and this is the idea. You can get your C++ or Rust or Go code and then compile it to a WASM file, which is something that the browser can interpret and execute much faster. Right now, we have 3 repositories, okay? Before we had only 1 project, now we have 3. And this might be confusing or might sound confusing, but there's a specific reason why we have 3 repositories. This is so to say, Tom's part or Tom's repository, even though I am collaborating with him on this. And this is like the brain of the application, the backend of the application. And this is able to load IFCs almost as fast as native applications. This is pure C++ code, which means that it's as efficient as the code can, because you know that C++ is one of the most efficient languages out there. And yeah, the problem with this code is that the price for using this technology is that it's something really, really new, and you have to install a lot of things in your computer that are not easy to install. So perhaps you have to lose, like one afternoon or 2 afternoons just fighting with this in order to download the library and being able to click on play. Only that, not writing any code, just having everything in your computer requires quite some effort. And because we are aware of this effort, we don't want to close the door to other developers to join this project. And probably a lot of developers will be scared when they go in here and see all these CPP or C++ files referencing the WebAssembly. I mean, this is new, this is scary, and this is complex. So this was the reason why we decided to keep this inside this repository. In a way, it's like hiding all the scary details of the implementation. So if tomorrow we have one developer that says, hey, I'm an expert in C++, I want to join your project, or I'm an expert in the IFC schema, I want to go low level with this. And when I say low level, I am referring to dealing with bytes and bits when you're reading a file and this kind of complex stuff. Yeah. Another good thing about this is completely agnostic of technologies, meaning that yes, we have decided to make the implementation with 3.js, but obviously there are more libraries out there that are able to generate 3D geometry. So what this does is this reads IFCs and gives back or returns geometry. So this geometry, which is just vertices and planes in the space, defined as coordinates or just numbers. So this can be used by Babylon.js, for example, that is another library. Or if tomorrow someone decides to create a new rendering library for the web, this will be compatible with that. So we are not coupling, or we are not depending on 3.js on this. We want to be as open as possible. So this backend, which is like the most complex thing of the whole project, is open to collaboration with any library. Yes, this is the first repository, the brain, so to say. Then we have a second repository, which is this, and this repository is the adaptation of the brain to 3.js, because there must be like a way to make the brain work together with 3.js entities, or it's like a adapter. Like when you go to another country and your device doesn't fit in the plugin, and you need an adapter to make this work. This is like an adapter. And then we have 3.js, which is basically the front end of the application. And this is the place where we will have all the logic for example, picking objects, showing menus in the web, accessing the properties, traversing those properties. And I know that this might sound a little bit abstract. So for this reason, let me open something so you can see what the benefit of this approach, or the state of the project. Let's see if I can. Okay. Yeah. If you go to if you download this code, what you will see is this. And if I execute this, this is really simple. You see that we have an IFC viewer. Really simple. We still need to work on this more. If I open a file, I don't know, let's open this, for example. what this is doing, this is calling the brain or the backend that we develop. Then this is wrapped inside the adapter that again we developed, and then it's displaying this in the browser. So as you say, or as you saw, this model was loaded relatively quickly. It has a decent size, and if we open this in front of a native IFC viewer such as BIM Vision, we will see that the times are really similar, with the difference that this is on the web, which means that it is completely compatible with any device, including mobile phones and tablets and Mac OS and Linux and so on. And
may I ask you something?
Yeah.
Is this for the time being available only offline? You just need to download this file IFC.js and run it in offline mode, or you don't have any infrastructure yet for online use, right?
Well, yes, there's a deployed example of this. If I go to IFC.js, here we have deployed the code in GitHub pages. So if I click here, we have the exact same thing in the web. So the idea is that if anyone implements any changes, tomorrow this will be available in the demo. But the important thing here is not the viewer itself. The important thing here is that this whole viewer, everything that you are seeing, is implemented here in less than 100 lines of code. Like this is what you see, which obviously if you don't know how to code, this might look scary, but I can assure you that for someone who knows how to code, will see at this code and it's really simple. And having a full functional IFC viewer or BIM viewer, which might be the basis for a future BIM application, in less than 100 lines of code, without having to worry about details about how to open the IFC, how to. This is something that, in my opinion, at least, it's really a game changer.
Impressive.
Yeah, because tomorrow, if someone that has just started to code, just like me some months ago, and wants to start developing BIM applications, using this, he can get started right away without any knowledge about the details about IFCs and so on. Because once we have the geometry here, we are able to select that geometry, access to that data. This is something that, even though it's really young, because we have been developing this since October, but this huge change, like changing everything to WASM, using I'm making this together with Tom's implementation. This is something that happened not a long time ago. So this is still really young, but we are very happy with the current state. For example, let's open a Revit sample project.
Regarding the JavaScript file you showed me, did you use React there?
No, it's plain JavaScript. You can. This is
Vanilla?
compatible with React, but you can use. This is. If. I don't know if you want me to explain this. It's really simple.
No. Don't go into many details. I was just curious.
But it's plain JavaScript. The only thing it's doing here is creating the scene, creating the camera, creating the renderer, some lights, and not much more. It's just that, and creating the the gray background and. But the file is loaded right away. And if you're wondering, by the way, these two lines is everything you need to load an IFC in your web application. You instantiate the IFC loader and you call the load function and give the it's 2 lines of code. Everything you need to have IFC, to have your tool compatible with IFC. So nice. This is the Revit sample project, and as you see, we're already able to load all the false ceilings, all the furniture, the people, the doors.
Let me ask you something else. If it's so simple, why doesn't anybody else did anything about this before?
Because I think that the only people that, I mean, in my opinion, this is everything my opinion, right?
Of course.
IFC documentation, it's really painful. And it was painful for me. And I work with IFCs every day. And this makes it really hard for anyone in their free time to sit down and say, okay, I'm going to study this 4,000 long documentation. And the result of this, in my opinion, improvable documentation is that the only people that has actually sit down and implement IFCs are either the other open source libraries, because this is not the only open source library, or the big software vendors such as Autodesk or Nemetschek, who get money for this. And because this requires so much effort and so many hours, I think this is something that nobody did for free, except for those libraries that already exist. And if your question is, why do those libraries? Because I think that the main difference between IFC.js and other libraries, such as, and I don't know these libraries in detail, so I might make a mistake when I talk about them. But yeah, I think that the main difference is that IFC.js is based on the browser, and this makes it really easy to create a really, really simple interface so other people can build other applications on top of it. As far as I know, and again, I might be wrong, other libraries do not use JavaScript. And this means that if you want to develop a BIM application using those libraries, what you have to do is create a server, because you know that usually in web applications, we have two parts. One is the browser or the client, and the other part is the server, which is a computer somewhere in the world where you get the data from the server.
Mm-hmm.
And if tomorrow I want to create a project using those libraries, I want to set up a server, which is already, not as simple as it's more complex.
Mm-hmm.
And then have part of the application in the server, because if I have the thing here is that browsers only understand JavaScript. And if you have code that is not JavaScript, you have to execute that code in a computer, not in the browser. So this means that in the server, you have to have this application, execute that application, and once you have the information, send it back to the client. And this is complex because in the end, I am loading the IFC in the browser, sending that IFC to the server, processing it in the backend, and getting it back. Mm-hmm. Whereas this allows you to do this much simpler. This is just a matter of loading it directly here, and it's there. We do all the heavy lifting and the hard work.
I understand. I wanted to ask you, why did you choose to go with open source? But I think the answer is already in everything I saw so far. Like,
yeah, actually, there's one principle. I cannot remember the name. There's one principle that says that the fastest way to learn something in internet is not asking question, but saying the wrong answer. Because if you say the wrong answer, there will be someone that corrects you. This has a name. I can't remember the name. And I think that open source is the perfect example for that. Because yes, you can obviously make Udemy courses, or you can make boot camps or to learn to code. But I think that the best thing I have taken out of this project is learning from people that know much more than me. And Tom is an example. Tom is a computer engineer and obviously I'm an architect. I'm not a computer engineer, but collaborating with him has already taught me a lot. That probably this knowledge is not something I can get out of a course in Udemy or in YouTube. And yes, the main reason to make open source software was because I was convinced that this was the best way to learn and the best way to know people that otherwise I could never know.
Yeah.
And obviously contributing to the community, because I think that sadly there are not many open source options in the BIM ecosystem we have now. And yeah, this is something that I think will change soon, and contributing to this change is something that makes me happy, because I think that I would like to have this kind of software, and instead of waiting for someone else to do it, why don't doing it myself?
Yeah, that's so true. I thank you personally for your contribution to the open source community for AAC. There are other points also. I believe if you if you want to start something proprietary about this, you need maybe a bigger team, not better, but a bigger team, and it takes more time until you get a product, right? But now, because you just put the project out there, you just got in contact with other passionate people about the project, and this way the project exploded, right? And it will keep exploding. So this is something else that you won't get with proprietary software.
Yeah, exactly. I really don't think that open source will eventually. I don't think that open source will substitute proprietary software, but I think that there are a lot of things that can be solved in open source, and this will benefit both the individual developer, or the sniper developer that develop small applications alone, and the big companies, because, for example, yes, IFC BIM. I think that all companies, all software companies that develop BIM software, have at least one person whose job is to implement exactly what we have implemented in this open source library. So yeah, we have this. Now it's open, so probably this will, save a lot of money even for the bigger companies. And if tomorrow there's changes in the IFC schema and there are problems, instead of correcting these things one time per software, we can correct this here, and all the people, even proprietary softwares using this library, will benefit from that change.
Yeah.
So yes, and to me it was really impressive how friendly and how helpful the people are in the open source community. So yeah, it's exactly like you described. I started this project without knowing exactly whether I was going to be able to do it, but yeah, a lot of people showed up. Like, I think that in the Discord channel we are more or less 30 developers, which is obviously not many developers, but I there are more and more coming up. And yeah, to me it was really, really impressive. And I am aware that most of these developers have more experience than me and know much more than me. But again, this was exactly what I wanted, or what I was looking for with this.
Yeah,
Be able
first,
to, yeah,
30 developers is not a little. It is a lot for a project that just started. So that is very positive. Don't look at the positive side. It's a lot of people that are interested in contributing. So that's very interesting and very important. I don't know if there are so many contributing to Blender BIM. So it looks like maybe it is more interest for this, because maybe there are people from companies that see value in this, and that can be reused in their projects. So that is one thing. And another thing, even if you have people like software developers with their experience, and you can learn a lot from them, let's just don't use that to like something to diminish your qualities and your experience here, because you have some unique qualities in this. Like, it was you who started this project once, and you are an architect. You are working in the AAC industry. You have the vision that they cannot have. They are software developers, right? They don't. So you have your unique qualities that cannot be replaced.
yeah. I think that in the future, coding will be like English. Everyone will know more, at least a little bit of it, in order to communicate with each other.
I think
So
this
yeah,
is
I agree.
happening. This is happening already, and I at least few times I've been saying exactly this in some episodes, older episodes of the podcast. I said exactly this, like, coding is becoming, it is already, like here in Norway, all the, like most of the job postings that I see, they include like you need to know at least graphic programming, at least how to use Grasshopper. Always specify that if you know Python or other programming languages, it's a big plus. And there are some of them that they require you to know. And there are these companies like Reop. Maybe you heard about Bad Monkeys and Håkon Vossag. I hope I pronounced his name correctly. They have a company of engineers and architects that are coders mostly, and they are helping engineering companies and clients in the construction industry or other consultants with exactly this part of the job, with programming and making everything more efficient. So I have no doubt, like, unfortunately, the academia has not understood this yet. So the curricula does not reflect this present or future that is becoming more valuable and more by every day. But I hope they will update in the future.
Yeah, I think this is one problem. In Spain, the architectural the architecture degree takes 6 years, 6 whole years, because they try to prepare you both the artistic and technical side. But for me, it was really eye-opening when I learned C++ in Udemy. Like, it was just one bootcamp. It wasn't even, a really, really deep course or anything. And then I posted in LinkedIn that I could do some C++. And even though I wasn't even looking for a job at that time, I got 3 job offers that week.
Wow.
And I think that this is something to think about, right? Like, obviously the university is an enriching experience. You know a lot of people, you grow as a person, but I wonder whether these 6 years are really necessary, and whether the content that I receive in those 6 years really correspond to what we find in the industry right now.
Well, you would not be the first person to find out that, like, to think about those things. Let's say it that way. There are many people that believe that, like, if you want, like, look at the biggest entrepreneurs of the world, like Bill Gates. He's a dropout, or I don't remember Steve Jobs if he was, but there are many of them that have done that, right? They had something to do and they just learned and did it. They did not wait for the system to validate their ideas. But you need a lot of confidence and courage to do that, I guess, right? And our societies are trying to teach us to adhere to all the rules, and like this is the golden path everybody should take, right? Go to school, go to university, be 25, start working, get yourself into debt, and go and become retire at 70 years. And after that, when are you going to enjoy life? Why you need to wait so much to do the things you love? Like, just start, do what you love to do, and that will come back to you.
Yeah, I think that, yes, we have this problem of, like, we have this notion of that you have to learn one thing, and then you can start working on this single thing you learned in university and do that for a living for 40 years. And perhaps this is the world that our parents lived, but I don't think this is the world where we live in right now. So in this constant learning process, I think that programming is something that should definitely be considered, because in the end, this is something that is very scary. Or for me, it was very scary when I started, but then I discovered that it was much easier than it looked, and it was very, very useful. And even, even beyond the job opportunities, which is a really pragmatic approach, I think that having more people that know how to code will make the
speed up things.
Or sector better, because if you have a huge community of coders who are also users of the software, they have more arguments to require for improvements in the software. Because, for example, IFC, okay, this is, everyone is convinced for some reason that IFC is a format that doesn't work very well. But in the end of the day, the reason why this notion exists is that the softwares that we have in the market right now are not able to parse, like to read and write IFC correctly. And because of that, and because of people not knowing, how to code, because in the end, IFC is nothing more than a format. And if you know how to code, you can, read the specification and understand it. I think that if we had more culture in this topic, we would be in a position to have better tools in the end of the day, and a better environment.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. There is another, I think this might be also a double-edged sword, because I don't know, some people say that not in many years we will have artificial intelligence that are going to code for us. So there is going to be like very redundant, very repetitive tasks. Like we will have writing softwares. That could also be a risk, but we don't know. There is nothing guaranteed, and for the time being, we need those skills.
But it's like saying that we have, like some years ago, we have this whole new software that helps you drawing the building. It's called Revit. And you could think like 10 years or 15 years ago, perhaps because of Revit I will lose my job. But in the end, what happens is that there's a new whole set of jobs around this new technology. So I don't know. I don't really think that coders will be substituted anytime soon. And I think even if that happened, there would be like a new type of coder focused on developing and maintaining this new technology that has substituted repetitive work before.
I agree. I agree. The same like the roles for engineers and architects. If we get software that can design buildings, and they won't need engineers anymore. Like they are going to be new roles for most. Of course, you need to become much better. Is going to weed out a lot of people, I guess. But who would like to put in the effort will definitely have always something to do.
Yeah.
You can please go ahead. We went sideways for something.
Right now, one thing I wanted to show, because I think that if I don't show this, I would be like lying, or it wouldn't be, what I'm showing now wouldn't be exactly true. Because obviously the models that I chose to show are the models that we are able to load seamlessly right now. But the library is not finished. This is a work in progress.
Yeah.
And I want to also to use this podcast and all the listeners to say that if you want to get into this project, we are completely open for collaboration, because this is, again, a work in progress. And if I take for example, a work that we are not able to load fully right now, for example, if I close this and take, let's take this, because right now, Tom made his own implementation of Boolean operations, which are basically the mathematical operations that are used when you subtract matter from other objects. Like when you create a window, you subtract the whole of the window. This is a Boolean operation usually. And this is something that we are working on, obviously, but that we don't fully support right now. So this is the Revit house. From this angle, it's okay, but we are having some. My point here is that yes, this is not finished. If you go to the library and try to load your model, you might find that there are some entities missing. That we we are not showing everything that you see in a native finished IFC viewer. And that is normal because, again, this is really young. We are working on this. And if this happens and you want to contribute and you don't know how to code, or you don't want to, get into coding this because perhaps this looks very intimidating to you, what you can do is go to the repository and write an issue, because these kind of things give us visibility and help us find the mistakes that we are doing when developing this. When I say writing an issue, the only thing it's necessary if you go to the repository, in this case, the backend, which is web IFC.
How it's easiest, how it's easiest to find for anyone? Like, let's say it's a new user to GitHub. What is the easiest way to find?
Yeah, if you go to the IFC.js,
show me. Can you please show me?
Yeah. I think if I write IFC.js, I'm not sure if we have, well, for some reason, the docs got more visibility than the repo itself. I have no idea about SEO and this kind of things, but yeah, in these results, you will see the GitHub repository at some point. And here, once you're here, if you go to the main page, which is this is the README. This is like the presentation or the dashboard for the project. And here, I explain a little bit everything that I have said now. Like, there are two other repositories. One is for the adaptation to 3.js, and the other is for the backend or the processing of IFCs. And both repositories are referenced here. So if I click here, I go here, which is the 3 adaptation. And if I click here, I go to the backend. So yeah, if you look for ifc.js, you will have those links and you will be able to access the other parts of the project. We know that we need more detailed and more graphic documentation to show, what the different parts, what each part does, and so on. But right now we are so busy implementing new things. For example, we spent the last days just setting up this structure of projects to communicate with each other. And now we are closing the pull request with 3.js, meaning that if you are a 3.js user, you will be able to load IFCs the same way as I did here, like with these 2 lines. So yeah, like there's a lot of things happening, and we are aware that we need to develop documentation. But yeah, this will happen eventually as soon as we find the time to do that.
Yeah, it's still early phase. It's completely, I understand. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is it. I'm not sure if you want to if you want me to tell me anything else. This project is it's small still. Even though one thing, earlier I said that we are 30 people in the Discord channel, but actually only these people contributed so far to the, like, it's not that there are 30 people coding inside the project, obviously, because a lot of people, a lot of these people are developers that are interested in using the library, but they don't want to contribute to the library itself.
Yeah, and some of them are not even developers, are just interested to see how development goes. But still, you have some. It's important that it's not only you. So yeah, you are 5. I guess you, Tom, and 3 others that.
Well, 6 actually. 6? I think 6, because Tom is not here because he didn't contribute.
Yeah, he's the okay. Oh yeah, true. This is yours.
Yeah. And yeah, this project is still small. Obviously, there isn't any use case to this because it's a library in process, so this could not be implemented in any product yet. But we are really happy with the speed of development in this project. We think that we are developing fast and that we will have a viable library in some months. So hopefully in the summer, anyone will be able to create BIM viewers with a couple of lines of code of JavaScript and without any effort.
Who is this for? Who should be interested in this?
Yeah, actually, there are multiple use cases for this. Anyone that wants to show their BIM models in their webpage could be interested for that. And this includes architectural studios that, perhaps they want to have their projects shown in the web, not only in images or in renders, they even want to give you the 3D model. And even though here I have like this aspect that this looks like a whole application, you can make this model small and integrate this with the HTML of your web page so that you can have this in your studio page and have your 3D models, and you can section them, you can click them, see information, you can do with them whatever you want. This also includes broker, no? How do you say that in English? Like the companies that sell houses, perhaps they want to show the clients the 3D models, like these are the houses that we have available. And perhaps with some JavaScript logic, you are even able to move objects around to see things. Yeah. Then all the people that want to create some kind of, I don't know, platform or application that works with IFC, because this doesn't only show the geometry, it also parses the data, so you can get the data. So if you're working to construct a web application that, I don't know, for example, reads all the quantities of the IFC or reads all the materials of the IFC, because perhaps you are in contact with vendors or something like that, you can use this library, and again, you don't have to worry about reading this documentation. You can just call the function and get the data or get the geometry. It's as simple as that.
For those who see this, maybe they see this some similar with BIM 360. How is this different than BIM 360? Do you know BIM 360?
Yeah. Well, BIM 360 is a platform that belongs to Autodesk and that has a lot of functionalities. It's a product, right? This is not a product. This is a piece to build your own product. This is something that you can use and bring to your project in order to build your own BIM 360, if you want to see this like that. Because without this, you have to be able to read and write IFC files. And this is, again, really not easy. And using this, you call this and you have it out of the box. And perhaps you combine this with other libraries, and in the end, you are able to build your analog platform to BIM 360. So this is not a finished product. This is a piece of the puzzle.
I understand. Are there any other browser viewers that you are aware about?
I don't think there are browser viewers that do what we are doing here, because the general approach when you want to see IFCs in browsers, because this is so difficult, like to parse the IFC directly in the browser, what it's usually done, you export the IFC to another format like GLTF or OBJ, and because this format is much easier, then you send that object to the browser and see it. The downside of this, again, is that you have to do this conversion in your server. So this adds complexity to the project, because you have to send the information to the server converts, and I think this is what happens in BIM 360, for instance. The server takes the IFC, exports the 3D model in another format that is more browser friendly, and then send that back. And I think this is different to the approach we are following here, because here we are converting any browser in an IFC viewer.
I see. Awesome. Very impressive work, Antonio.
Yeah, no, anytime, man. It's not finished yet, but we hope.
But like the direction you are heading in is very important, and I'm sure it's going to be more and more interest for this, and more help will join in the project. Is there anything else you think it's important to mention that you did not mention yet?
yes. If there's anyone seeing this and anyone that is, perhaps saying, oh, I would like to participate, but perhaps I don't have the knowledge to get into this because, I see all these things I don't know, like I don't know much about JavaScript, or I
Mhm.
see this C++ and I don't know much about C++. The reality is, and I am being completely honest here, is that this is my first JavaScript project and also my first C++ project. And I am learning along the way. And really, I think that here in the open source world, it's not very important to have the knowledge, or it's not. The most important thing is not to have the knowledge, but be um, to be open to spend the time necessary to gain the knowledge to do
Mhm.
that project.
Mhm.
So if there's anyone that wants to join the project and is afraid that perhaps, oh, I'm ashamed because I am a new developer or I am an experienced developer, but in another areas, don't be afraid, just ask, because we are really friendly. We don't bite or anything. And yeah, we will welcome you to the project.
Awesome. How can people contact you, Antonio?
Yeah, they can join the Discord group. We have a Discord group. I think there's somewhere here. Otherwise, and it's also, if you look for that in Twitter, or you can directly read, like, private message me, both in Twitter or in GitHub, or go to the IFC.js. Like if you go here, you go to issues and you write, hey, I would like to participate. And then perhaps you tell us, hey, I know this and that, but I don't know anything about C++. Where do you think I can participate? And we can help you find out where your place is in the project. And yeah, I really encourage everyone to get into this, because I really think this will be really useful in the short term.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you very much for joining me and showing me all this interesting stuff. And thank you very much for putting in the time to develop this tool, actually.
Yeah, no, thank you for the invitation. It was a pleasure to show this.